Ladies and gentlemen, loyalty is not a trivial thing. It is the bedrock upon which trust is built, the foundation of meaningful relationships, and the glue that binds integrity to action. A truly loyal man is not loyal because it is easy. He is loyal because he has chosen to be, because he understands that commitment, honesty, and sacrifice are the pillars of strength in a chaotic world. But what happens when that loyalty is betrayed? When a man who has stood firm in the face of adversity, who has given his heart and soul in faith, is wounded by the very ones he trusted, he does not lash out blindly. He does not seek vengeance. No, something far more profound takes place. Tonight, we will explore the transformation that occurs when you hurt a loyal man, how pain reshapes him, how disillusionment forces him to reevaluate his place in the world, and how, if he chooses wisely, he emerges not as a bitter shell, but as something stronger, sharper, and utterly unshakable. Let's dive in. Loyalty is a rare quality in a world driven by self-interest and convenience. A truly loyal man does not offer his commitment lightly, nor does he base it on fleeting emotions or temporary circumstances. His loyalty is a conscious decision rooted in values, principles, and a deep sense of responsibility. It is not something he gives away freely to just anyone, nor is it something that can be swayed by momentary hardships. His loyalty is not a sign of weakness, but of profound strength, discipline, and resilience. A loyal man understands that true commitment requires effort, sacrifice, and patience. He does not abandon those he cares about when times get tough. He does not walk away when situations become inconvenient. He remains steadfast because he believes in the power of consistency and the significance of standing by those who matter to him. It is not blind obedience, nor is it submission. It is an unwavering dedication to what he believes is right. He chooses loyalty not because it is always easy, but because he knows that trust, honor, and integrity are the foundation of meaningful connections. Many misunderstand loyalty, assuming it to be a passive trait, something that comes naturally rather than a conscious decision. But in reality, loyalty is an active choice made daily, often in the face of challenges and temptations. A loyal man does not remain committed because he lacks other options, but because he values depth over superficiality, principles over convenience, and long-term trust over short-term gain. He understands that loyalty requires work, just as anything meaningful in life does. It is not about blind adherence. It is about standing by what he believes in, even when tested. Such a man does not seek validation or approval for his loyalty. He does not expect praise for being consistent, nor does he demand recognition for his reliability. He remains loyal because it aligns with his internal code of ethics. He does not waver when difficulties arise, nor does he abandon ship at the first sign of trouble. He sees loyalty as a reflection of his character, something that defines who he is rather than something he does for others. It is ingrained in his nature, not as a compulsion, but as a decision that reflects his inner strength. His loyalty extends beyond mere relationships. It influences every aspect of his life. He is committed to his principles, his goals, and his responsibilities. If he gives his word, he follows through. If he makes a promise, he keeps it. If he pledges his support, he remains unwavering. This is what separates him from those who treat loyalty as conditional, something that can be given and withdrawn based on emotions or circumstances. He does not betray others to serve his own interests because he understands that loyalty is a matter of integrity, and integrity is not something to be compromised. Because his loyalty is a choice, he does not give it lightly. He is not blindly devoted to just anyone, nor does he waste his energy on people who do not value it. He carefully selects whom to stand by, ensuring that his loyalty is directed toward those who appreciate and reciprocate it. He understands that loyalty must be mutual, that true commitment is a two-way street. He does not allow himself to be taken advantage of, nor does he mistake loyalty for servitude. He knows the difference between being devoted and being used. When he chooses loyalty, it is with full awareness of the risks. He knows that people can be unpredictable, that betrayal is always a possibility, and that not everyone will appreciate the depth of his commitment. Yet he remains loyal not because of guarantees, but because he refuses to let fear dictate his character. He understands that just as trust is built over time, so too is loyalty tested through adversity. He remains committed because he sees loyalty as a reflection of his own values, not just a response to how others treat him. A man like this does not give up easily. He does not allow momentary setbacks to dictate his choices. His loyalty is not swayed by gossip, doubt, or external pressure. He holds firm in his commitments because he understands the weight of his decisions. He is not reckless with his loyalty, nor is he careless in whom he trusts. He values those he stands by, and he expects the same in return. Because his loyalty is intentional, it is also unshakable. It is not the result of weakness or dependency, but of strength and clarity. He is not loyal because he is afraid to be alone, nor does he cling to people out of desperation. He chooses to stand by others because he knows the value of genuine connections, the importance of reliability, and the honor of being a man whose word can be trusted. Betrayal is not just an act of disloyalty, it is an event that shatters the foundation upon which trust is built. For a loyal man, trust is not something given lightly. It is earned, cultivated, and reinforced through consistent actions over time. When he chooses to trust, he does so fully, believing that his commitment is reciprocated. He does not operate in half measures, nor does he assume deceit where none has been shown. His trust is a reflection of his own integrity, his belief in honor, and his willingness to invest in those he cares about. This makes betrayal particularly devastating for him, not just because of the act itself, but because of what it represents. The destruction of something he believed in, the unraveling of the principles that guided his relationships. When a loyal man is betrayed, his perception of the world is altered. He no longer views people through the same lens of optimism and trust. The betrayal forces him to question not just the one who wronged him, but also his own judgment. He wonders how he failed to see the signs, whether he misjudged character, and if his belief in loyalty was misplaced. This self-reflection can be painful, as it forces him to confront uncomfortable truths about human nature and his own vulnerability. He realizes that not everyone values commitment the way he does, that some people take advantage of loyalty rather than honor it. This newfound awareness does not manifest as immediate anger or revenge. Instead, it settles into a deep contemplation, a shift in the way he approaches relationships. He becomes more cautious, more discerning in whom he trusts. He starts to recognize patterns he may have previously overlooked, the small inconsistencies, the subtle signs of disloyalty, the moments of selfishness that he once dismissed as insignificant. He begins to understand that loyalty is not something that can be assumed, but must be continuously proven. His view of relationships is no longer based on mere words or promises. He starts to prioritize actions over intentions, consistency over fleeting gestures. He no longer assumes that someone will value his loyalty just because he gives it freely. He understands that some people only appreciate commitment when it serves their interests, that loyalty is often taken for granted until it is gone. This realization changes the way he interacts with others. He no longer gives second chances as easily. He no longer overlooks behavior that contradicts spoken assurances. The betrayal does not just affect how he sees others, it changes how he sees himself. He begins to understand that his loyalty is a rare quality, one that should not be wasted on those who do not deserve it. He starts to set boundaries, recognizing that his commitment should only be given to those who prove themselves worthy. This is not an act of bitterness, but of wisdom. He refuses to be naive, to allow himself to be hurt repeatedly by those who have shown they cannot be trusted. He learns the value of selective loyalty, of reserving his trust for those who have demonstrated through actions that they honor and respect it. He also begins to see the difference between unconditional loyalty and blind loyalty. He once believed that standing by someone meant enduring hardships with them, that commitment meant weathering all storms together. But he now understands that true loyalty must be mutual. If someone is willing to betray him, they have already broken the unspoken agreement that loyalty entails. He realizes that staying loyal to the wrong people does not make him noble. It makes him vulnerable to further harm. His transformation is not immediate, nor is it without struggle. There are moments when he misses the simplicity of trust, when he longs for the days before he had to question motives and intentions. But he cannot go back to who he was before the betrayal. The experience has reshaped him, made him more aware, more guarded. He no longer trusts blindly, but he also does not become cynical. Instead, he finds a balance, an understanding that while loyalty is a strength, it must be given wisely. He no longer assumes that everyone will honor it, but when he does choose to trust, he does so with a deeper awareness of what it truly means. Pain is a force that reshapes a man, especially one who has built his life on principles of loyalty, trust, and honor. It is not just an emotion or a fleeting experience. It is a teacher, a catalyst for transformation. When a loyal man is hurt, particularly by those he trusted the most, he does not simply recover and return to his former self. The pain forces him to evolve, to see the world with sharper clarity, and to redefine his place in it. It is in suffering that he discovers new strength, even if that strength is born from wounds he never expected to endure. At first, the pain is overwhelming. It cuts deep, not just because of the betrayal or loss, but because it challenges everything he believed about loyalty and human nature. He had built his relationships on the assumption that his devotion would be met with the same level of commitment. When that assumption is shattered, he is left questioning more than just the people who hurt him. He questions himself. He wonders if he was too trusting, too blind to the reality that not everyone values loyalty the way he does. This self-doubt lingers, making him re-examine his past decisions and the way he has navigated relationships. But within this questioning lies the first step of growth. The pain forces him to confront uncomfortable truths, to acknowledge that he may have ignored warning signs, that he may have given too much of himself to those who did not deserve it. He starts to see patterns he previously overlooked, subtle signs of manipulation, moments of selfishness or inconsistencies that he had brushed aside in the name of loyalty. This realization is not easy, but it is necessary. It pushes him to redefine what loyalty means, not as a blind commitment to others, but as a principle that must be mutual and respected. As he processes the pain, he begins to shift his focus inward. He realizes that growth comes not from seeking validation or revenge, but from strengthening himself. He channels his energy into self-improvement, into developing skills, wisdom, and emotional resilience. He no longer views pain as something to escape from, but as something to learn from. He understands that suffering is not the end of his story, but the beginning of a new chapter, one where he is more aware, more intentional, and more in control of his own destiny. The transformation does not happen overnight. There are days when the weight of the betrayal lingers, when the memories of the past creep in and make him question whether the pain was worth it. But with time, he starts to see the changes within himself. He is no longer as quick to trust, but when he does, it is with greater discernment. He no longer seeks approval from those who take his loyalty for granted. He becomes more selective with his energy, investing only in those who have proven their worth. Through this process, he also learns the power of emotional control. The pain he endured could have easily led to bitterness, but instead he chooses discipline. He understands that reacting out of anger or resentment would only give power to those who hurt him. Instead, he focuses on mastering his emotions, on using his experiences as a tool for personal elevation. And he becomes more measured in his responses, more aware of the impact of his decisions. He does not allow his suffering to make him reckless. He allows it to make him stronger. This growth is not just internal. It reflects in the way he carries himself. He develops a quiet confidence, an unshakable presence that commands respect. He no longer feels the need to prove his loyalty to those who do not value it. He moves with purpose, knowing that his experiences have forged him into a wiser, more resilient version of himself. He does not dwell in the past, but he does not forget the lessons it has taught him. Silence becomes a powerful tool for a man who has been hurt, particularly one who has known the pain of betrayal or disloyalty. It is not a silence born of fear or passivity, but one that emerges from strength and clarity. The act of choosing silence, rather than engaging in conflict or reacting impulsively, becomes an expression of his inner power. It is a decision, a conscious choice to withdraw from unnecessary drama, to step away from toxic interactions, and to protect his peace. This silence does not mean weakness. It signifies control and maturity, the ability to rise above the chaos without lowering oneself to it. When a loyal man is hurt, the immediate temptation is to fight back, to voice his pain, to demand an explanation, to seek revenge, or to publicly call out those who wronged him. But over time, he learns that responding in this way often only prolongs the conflict and reinforces the power of those who have already hurt him. Instead, he recognizes that silence is not an absence of action, but a calculated strategy. It allows him to take a step back to regain his composure and to avoid making decisions in the heat of emotional turmoil. In silence, he finds the clarity needed to see the situation for what it truly is, without being clouded by anger or frustration. Through silence, he also gains the opportunity to reflect. When he is no longer caught up in the noise of a situation, he can assess what happened with greater objectivity. He can identify what went wrong, how it went wrong, and what role, if any, he played in it. Silence gives him space to grieve, to process, and to heal without the pressure of external expectations. It removes him from the influence of others who may try to push him into responding before he is ready. In this space, he gains a sense of emotional sovereignty. His emotions are no longer ruled by others, but he governs them with wisdom and discernment. This silence is not just a way to process pain. It is also a way to preserve dignity. There is a quiet strength in choosing not to retaliate, to stoop to the level of those who hurt you. He does not need to prove his worth or engage in petty arguments. He understands that his character is defined by his actions, not by how others perceive him or the drama that others may create. By choosing silence, he maintains his integrity. He refuses to let those who wronged him dictate his response. He becomes a man who is known for his composure, for his ability to rise above petty disputes and maintain his focus on what truly matters. Additionally, silence allows him to distance himself from people or situations that no longer serve him. When a loyal man is hurt, he understands that loyalty must be earned and maintained. If someone has proven themselves unworthy of his trust, he no longer feels the need to continue the relationship. Silence becomes a boundary, a way of communicating that he will no longer engage in something that brings him harm. He does not need to explain himself or justify his decision. The silence speaks for him. It is enough to simply walk away, to show that his time and energy are too valuable to be wasted on people who take advantage of his loyalty. There is also power in silence because it forces others to confront the consequences of their actions. Often, when a person wrongs someone, they expect a reaction. They expect an emotional outburst, an explanation, or even an apology. But when the loyal man remains silent, they are left with nothing but the weight of their own behavior. They are forced to reflect on what they have done, without the comfort of a defense or the distraction of a response. In this way, silence becomes a tool of self-respect. It is not just about protecting himself, but about allowing others to face the truth of their actions. In time, the loyal man's silence also becomes a shield. It prevents others from using his emotions against him. It stops people from provoking him into actions that may compromise his values or lead him down a path of regret. Silence gives him the freedom to choose how he will respond to situations without being swept away by the tide of negative emotions. He becomes a man who is guided by principles, not by impulses. His actions are deliberate, not reactive. He speaks only when it matters, and he listens more than he talks. This control over his reactions also allows him to focus on personal growth. He no longer wastes energy on those who have shown they cannot be trusted. He uses his silence to invest in himself, to develop his skills, and to strengthen his character. He surrounds himself with those who inspire him, who value loyalty and integrity. The more he embraces silence, the more he realizes that peace is not found in constant communication or in defending himself. It is found in stillness, in knowing when to speak and when to withdraw. When a loyal man is hurt, he withdraws, but this withdrawal is not a sign of weakness, nor does it indicate that he has given up. It is a form of self-preservation, a decision made out of necessity rather than despair. His decision to step away is not impulsive or vengeful. It is deliberate and calculated, a way for him to regain his strength and reevaluate the situation with clear eyes. When a loyal man withdraws, he does so to create space between himself and the negativity or betrayal he has encountered. He understands that in order to move forward, he must first distance himself from the emotional turmoil that can cloud his judgment. This withdrawal is not about running away from the problem. It is about stepping back so that he can assess the situation properly. He realizes that sometimes the best way to move forward is to pause, reflect, and allow the emotions to settle. When he is hurt, he does not react in haste, but instead takes the time to regain his composure. He knows that acting out of anger or frustration will only lead to regret, so he allows himself the time and space he needs to heal. In this period of withdrawal, he focuses on himself. He turns inward, not as an escape from reality, but as a means of self-restoration. He seeks clarity, working through the emotional aftermath of the betrayal or hurt. He takes this time to reflect on his own role in the situation, asking himself if there were any warning signs he missed, any lessons he can learn from the experience. He does not dwell in self-pity or regret. Instead, he uses the time to grow, to learn, and to become stronger. He realizes that his strength lies not in the ability to endure suffering without consequence, but in the ability to heal, to adapt, and to evolve from the pain he has experienced. As he withdraws, he also begins to redefine his boundaries. He recognizes that loyalty does not mean sacrificing his own well-being for the sake of others. He learns that he must set limits with those who have hurt him, ensuring that he does not allow himself to be put in a position where he is vulnerable to further harm. But he becomes more discerning in how he invests his energy, choosing to invest in relationships and endeavors that are worth his time and commitment. This new awareness of boundaries makes him more selective about where he places his trust, more intentional in the people he chooses to let into his life. During this time of withdrawal, he also gains the ability to process his emotions without letting them control him. He no longer lets his feelings dictate his actions. Instead, he learns to manage his emotions, using them as a tool for growth rather than as a source of instability. He understands that emotions are a natural part of life, but they are not the guiding force of his decisions. His ability to withdraw and process his pain allows him to move through the hurt without being consumed by it. Withdrawal also offers him the opportunity to rebuild his sense of self. When a loyal man is hurt, he often feels as if a part of his identity has been fractured. His sense of self-worth, his sense of purpose, and even his sense of trust in others. By stepping away from the situation, he gives himself the chance to rebuild his confidence, to reconnect with his core values, and to remind himself of who he is beyond the betrayal. He does not need external validation to affirm his worth. He understands that his value comes from within, from the strength of his character and the integrity of his actions. As time passes, the loyal man's withdrawal allows him to gain perspective on the situation. What once seemed like a devastating blow now appears as an opportunity for personal growth. He learns to see the betrayal, or hurt not, as a final defeat, but as a necessary experience for his development. He begins to understand that the pain he endured has shaped him, that it has forced him to confront his weaknesses and to rise above them. It becomes a defining moment in his life, one that marks the shift from being reactive to being proactive, from being a victim of circumstances to being the architect of his own future. When he emerges from his period of withdrawal, he does so not as a man broken by the hurt, but as one who has been strengthened by it. He has learned to embrace the lessons that pain has to offer, and he has gained a new sense of self-respect. He moves forward with greater wisdom, knowing that the power to shape his future lies in his own hands, not in the actions of others. He returns not out of obligation or necessity, but because he has grown, and because he now understands the value of his loyalty and how to direct it wisely. He does not need anyone else's validation to know that he is whole. He knows it for himself. The loyal man's decision to leave behind what once mattered is not one taken lightly. It is the culmination of a process, a series of realizations, reflections, and emotional reckonings that force him to face uncomfortable truths. Loyalty for him is not just a word, it is a commitment, a bond that he holds sacred. When that bond is broken, when the very foundation of trust is shattered, it compels him to reevaluate everything. Leaving behind the people, places, or situations that once played a significant role in his life is not an act of anger or malice. It is an act of self-preservation, of recognizing that sometimes to protect one's peace and dignity, walking away is the only viable option. For a loyal man, relationships are deeply personal. They are built on mutual respect, shared values, and a commitment to one another's well-being. And when that commitment is betrayed, the emotional cost is not just the hurt caused by the betrayal itself, but the loss of something he thought was unshakable. This feeling of loss becomes a defining moment, a choice between clinging to the past or embracing the truth that what once was no longer serves him. It is in these moments that he realizes the importance of walking away. He recognizes that staying in a relationship or situation that no longer aligns with his values is a form of self-betrayal. The loyalty that once defined him, the very quality that made him stand out, can no longer be poured into something that does not honor it in return. Leaving is a difficult process, not because the loyal man lacks the courage to walk away, but because of the emotional ties that have been formed over time. The connections that have shaped his life are not easily severed. He has invested his time, his energy, his trust, and often a part of his heart. These investments are not made lightly. For him, the decision to leave is an acknowledgement that despite his best efforts, despite the loyalty he has given, the relationship or situation no longer reflects the integrity he holds dear. It forces him to face the reality that sometimes love, loyalty, and devotion are not enough to sustain something that has become toxic or unworthy of his time and care. The act of leaving behind what no longer serves him is not driven by bitterness, but by a deep understanding of his worth. He knows that loyalty must be reciprocal, and if that loyalty is not honored, then staying would only mean sacrificing his peace and self-respect. Leaving is an act of self-love, of acknowledging that he is worthy of relationships that honor his loyalty and treat him with the same respect he gives to others. It is also a form of empowerment. By walking away, he takes control of his future and refuses to let someone else dictate his path. He realizes that no matter how deeply he cares or how much he has invested, he cannot make another person change, nor can he force them to value what he values. For the loyal man, leaving is a step toward growth. It allows him to distance himself from the emotional weight of the past and begin healing. The decision to walk away gives him the space to reflect on the lessons learned, to reclaim his sense of purpose, and to rebuild his life on his own terms. It is a painful but necessary process. He may grieve the loss of what could have been the dreams and hopes that have been dashed, but he also knows that his life is his own to shape. He understands that leaving behind what no longer serves him opens up room for new opportunities, new connections, and a new chapter where he can apply the wisdom gained from past experiences. The loyal man who chooses to leave does not do so impulsively. He weighs his options carefully, considering the long-term impact of staying versus leaving. He is not driven by rash emotions or knee-jerk reactions. Instead, his decision is the result of deep reflection, understanding that sometimes the most loving thing he can do for himself and others is to walk away. He does not abandon people out of spite or because he is incapable of forgiveness, but because he recognizes that loyalty should not be unconditional when it is not reciprocated. Leaving is his way of honoring his own values and protecting his emotional well-being. Through this process, the loyal man learns a vital lesson, that loyalty, while a great strength, should not come at the cost of his own happiness or self-respect. He understands that true loyalty is not about remaining at any cost, but about knowing when to let go and trust that walking away is the best decision for his future. As he walks away, he carries with him the wisdom of his experiences, a deeper understanding of his own boundaries, and a stronger sense of self. This decision is not an end, but a beginning, a step toward a life where he can embrace the relationships, opportunities, and experiences that truly align with his values and honor his loyalty in return.